Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on visibility, assurance, and analytics. My name is Lance McCall, the Global Campaign Manager here at Ribbon Communications. And I'm joined today by Rich Krazan, Ribbon Product Management, Todd Warble, Sales Management for Analytics, Prasanna Vijay Kumar, Solutions Marketing Manager, and of course, Elizabeth Page, U.S. Rural Market Sales Director. So thank you to everyone for being on today. While people are still joining and before we get started, I did want to point out the features of the webinar. So on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you should see the Ask a Question tab. If you don't see that, you should see a question mark. You can click it and it'll slide over and you'll see an area where you can type us your question. We'd love to get to your questions today and certainly have the right people on this call to answer those. So please take advantage of that and ask us any questions you may have as we go along. In addition, we do have some collateral for you to take at your convenience. So you can access those by clicking the document icon on the right side of your screen. I believe there's 5 different pieces of collateral there. So please feel free to take those anytime as we go along today as well. Okay, that's really all I have for housekeeping. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Prasanna, who's going to get us started. Prasanna, do we have you?
Yes, I do, Lance. So I hope you're able to see the screen and everything is working pitch perfect, right?
All good.
All right, perfect. All right, so let me, we have packed some content here for you guys. Thanks for joining again. My name is Prasanna here. So just to give you a quick preview, what we have today in the menu is that we are going to kick it off with some market dynamics and challenges, and then we're going to talk about how do we address the gap with those specific to those challenges with analytics. To be specific, we have when you get out of here, you'll be taking away how analytics can help you give you better monitoring solution, better security solutions for fixed voice network per se, right? Which involves all your C15, C20s, gateways, soft switches, SBCs, all the way across to any other third-party similar elements, right? So we have a demo which Todd and Rich will be coming in and they'll be talking to it. We have a bunch of use cases and followed by some Q&A. So again, feel free to throw in the questions that you would like to get clarified. We'll be happy to help you with that. With that, we all understand, the rural telcos market dynamics, right, which are constantly evolving as we see. We are noticing an increased demand and need for speed from end users, right, whether it's a residential subscriber or a business user. There is a greater emphasis more than ever on the importance of anytime, anywhere types of communications, right, or all the way to digital connectivity for either for the work purposes for your subscribers or education purposes for your subscribers, right, and all the way to the business users. So in the recent times, this has also turned the spotlight, right, on the glaring, I would say, the digital divide across the country, right. So there are more people working on studying from home today, which is invariably puts the pressure on the network, infrastructure, right, and services delivery. Whether they're working or studying doesn't matter, but there are lots of people today in the last couple of years that we see. Additionally, the cloud has significantly improved the ability, right, to maximize the effectiveness, whether to deliver consumer applications, things as simple as video conversation, right, has definitely gone up in the past 2 years. We are seeing a lot more importance given today by telcos running infrastructure, either on the cloud or moving the applications on the public or private cloud or a hybrid kind of interworking environment, delivering services, right? So there are, with our customers, we see 2 interrelated challenges, with telcos, right? On the one hand, the cost of deploying and maintaining networks, the devices and services in rural and remote areas, especially to rural and remote areas, can be significantly high, right? On the other, the average revenue per user is going low, significantly low. So in other words, the business case is rather weak, right, when somebody has to put something or upgrade a network, etc. So we believe in cost efficiency, when we as a vendor as well as other solution vendors in the market. So we believe cost efficiency in providing rural connectivity, right, is best achieved by leveraging the existing network infrastructure and assets, when and where possible, right, and better operationalizing the network to reduce the ongoing cost, right, or streamline the maintenance. So things like data analytics can be effectively deployed, right, to define those strategies, for unique telco challenges, right, whether it is to offer insights to maintain the network or to deliver the assurance and security, by the telcos to the customers, right, eventually. And the last one to note here is that, before we move on, uh, the near-term objective to get on par, with connectivity, right, in the urban and suburban areas, lots of regulatory requirements are being defined, right, as we speak. And again, there are things like RDOF, trying to accomplish this mission, right, by funding the expansion of rural broadband access, etc. So keeping all these dynamics in mind, rural operators today need to start getting ready, right, to monetize the networks and services and eventually future-proofing it for the next level of digital transformation. So we see, complexities and challenges faced by telcos primarily in these three areas, right? So what are some of the network complexities that we can identify with our customers? Delivering service level agreements, QoE or quality of experience guaranteed to your customers, right? In particular, in fixed, voice network environments, you see lots of data that comes in from your existing switches, right? Or let's say records collected from switches like C15 or switches like your legacy switches like CS2K or your C20s, virtual C20s, SBCs, gateways, and similar third-party switches, right? And network elements all the way to the new, virtualized or cloud-based instances that's running. All these invariably increases the difficulty level, right, and meeting those SLAs and QoEs guaranteed to your customers. So these are some of the questions we know as, the challenges, right, faced by the customers. How many tools do you use, today to detect and troubleshoot QoE or, issues, right, experience issues? Or can I make use of the data to reduce cost and increase profitability, right? Which then brings in the complexity, right, of inefficient operations. We get the report, that explains what is happening in the network, let's say from the EMS tools, or what happened in the past. You can do that to better plan the scenario, right? Can we then look into these, reports and or statistics or figures that of what's coming in, can we address security issues with the same kind of, analysis, right? And stop things before it happens or in real time or when it's happening, right, in the network. And to top of all these as a telco, right, the biggest complexity end of the day is to catch up with other fast, let's say, evolving competitive services, right, and applications that are available today. And if, let's say, we have a proper data enrichment tool in place doing the network operations and security, then we can worry less about those poor services, right, and services disruption, or let's say you're worried about exhausting your SBC capacity, especially in times like COVID, and focus on, actually rolling other key services right out to the market and address poor customer experience as a major factor, right? So before we move on, let's stop and look at this simple, network evolution graph, right? So which is, constantly increasing in terms of the scale and the complexity, right from switches and routers in your network to cloud or, on-premise based IPv6 to SIP trunking providers. You say deploying all these elements, let's say all the way to putting it on a public cloud, private cloud, cloud native function, hybrid deployments irrespective of where you're putting it. The traffic and, and the technology is growing, right, and it will keep growing. And as the traffic and technology grows, the management tools and resources like the EMS, the standard element management system tools that you use today, and the OSS, BSS tools, and the people and processes that is required to manage all those elements, applications, and services keeps growing too. It's no longer, about managing the individual network element, right, or the particular application or services, which is kind of a siloed and kind of monolithic kind of approach, right, wherein EMS can manage a single element or a group of similar elements. For example, you can configure, or you can read alarms, etc., on a particular node or a group of elements, right? So EMS can manage a group of devices for sure of the same type, but it treats all the devices in the group as a single device and does not, talk to each other, right, or correlate things across the network. To sum up, the question to ask is, are our current resources keeping pace, right, as the technology evolves, in the infrastructure, right, within the infrastructure? So there are three reasons why you need an analytics software in your network, right? Let's take it from the left. So you need the right visibility across your network. So in this case, let's say you're offering a class 5 or a 4 service using soft switches, media gateways, or let's say SIP trunking or interconnect wholesale services using SBCs. You need an application to look into these elements, right, or similar third-party elements across your network. It is about taking those raw data from your network, your devices and services, and turning them into KPIs, right, or key performance indicators that we can then customize and deliver in an interactive dashboard, right, for your operation team or your planning team or your security team, right? So which brings us to the agility of the analytics tools in the network, that is whether the software you deploy to manage and secure the network grows at scale, right? And not just in the number of users wise, but across your growing network elements, right? And the element management systems. The tools we put in place today should grow as the technology evolves, right? And the last, automating the operations of these network elements and processes. It need not be a complex automation type of use cases, right? That might be required for like cloud or 5G types of services and network, but simple processes in place today that can help you streamline planning or operations or security in your voice network, right? So for example, things like, it can help us quickly identify trends such as poor device performance, which, and capacity exhaustion. I was talking to you earlier about it, or proactively help fix issues that may or may not be known within your network, right? Or troubleshooting specific issues by getting to the root cause, for example, quickly using automation. So all of these put together as an analytics function will definitely deliver all these, benefits, right, which will go a long way as telcos move across this digital transformation, right? With that, I'm going to hand it over to Todd, and he's going to come in and take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Prasanna. So as Prasanna was mentioning, the Ribbon Analytics tool is a highly powerful analytics platform. And as part of that platform, it has the ability to ingest data from any number of places. And then we process that through our system, and these are the different types of applications that we run on top of that source data. So we'll really focus on two different pillars, if you will, of applications that the Ribbon Analytics solution is built upon. Prasanna was just talking a lot about visibility into the network, and that obviously drives a lot of what's happening in the operations department. We have our basic Discover application. This is what you would expect to see out of a typical monitoring tool. Charts, KPIs, alerts. The solution is designed from the beginning to be something that's incredibly useful out of the box. In other words, you don't have to have someone dedicated to the maintenance of the tool itself. It should provide you the visibility that you require day one. However, it's also extremely flexible. It's very powerful so that, should you have different needs or you want to customize to your particular environment, absolutely very doable. Custom KPIs, custom dashboards, etc. We'll look at all of that here in a little bit. Once you understand what's happening in your network, you may want to understand what's going to happen in your network. So we offer the planner application. This is a forecasting tool, allows you to look at different KPIs and metrics and forecast how they may change over time, so that you can properly predict where you should be deploying your resources in the coming weeks and months. We also offer a ladder application. This is your basic signaling diagram that allows you to go in detail to look at particular call flows and identify where issues may be piping up during a particular call flow. And actually, Rich will talk a little bit about most probable cause towards the end of the call. This is a root cause analysis tool that is an AI-based solution that we are able to apply to some of the different data sources that allows us to dynamically identify issues within the network and actually have those issues bubble to the top to reduce the troubleshooting time for your technicians. Really, if you think about the operations side, this is all about efficiency. It's about making your team much more efficient and looking at and sifting through the tremendous amount of data coming out of your network so that it's actually useful. And this allows you to hopefully manage your network with fewer folks and, if nothing else, putting less and less time into the management of the networks and having the tool do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. On the other side of the ledger, we have a number of security applications. You've probably heard about things like fraud and TDOS a lot in the industry of recent, and we have tools that allow you to actually detect these issues on the network as they bubble up. We also integrate these security tools with things that we call mitigation efforts that allow you to dynamically apply rules to alleviate any of these things as they pop up on the network. So Fraud Protect is looking for behavior. It has a certain set of rules that will actually identify outlying behavior. If you know Steve is typically in the office from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, all of a sudden on a Saturday he's calling Zimbabwe. We know to be able to bubble that type of behavior to the top and, if nothing else, alert you, but also potentially take action automatically. These would be the mitigation or the automation rules that Prasanna was just talking about. Something very similar for TDOS, a telephony and denial of service attack, identifying high call rate attacks and thwarting those as they are in process. And then finally, we have a pretty well-rounded voice threat prevention solution that allows us to detect and mitigate attacks from a number of different areas. It's something that we can get into greater detail a little bit later, but the reality is we're taking in data from a number of different places, even external third-party databases, running through what we consider our call trust architecture and identifying outliers that don't really belong on the network and allowing the network to take more dynamic action. We can go to the next slide there, Prasanna. Focusing a little bit more on the visibility component, the operational analytics application that we were just discussing. As I said, this is all about efficiency for the team. So this is increasing your visibility, identifying issues before they bubble to the top, before calls start coming into the call center. Like I said, we start off with a number of standard dashboards, in this case for the C15, that summarize exactly what's happening on the network and for the service itself. There are built-in KPIs that allow us to really understand what's happening on the network. Again, this is multiple data points being correlated together and helping us in a single shot understanding what exactly is happening. Based on these dashboards and these KPIs, we may actually want to take some actions, and we can do things like rules and incident detection that allows us to, whether it be generate reports or take actions on the network on behalf of the network in order to make certain that the network itself is running more efficiently. And finally, there are, what you would expect in the form of alerts and policies that, based on threshold settings, allow us to raise the red flag and draw some attention. Again, everything here is about making your team much more efficient in the management of the network overall. The following slide there, Prasanna. When this comes to the C15, and again, we'll focus on the C15 in our demo here, but the reality is, as Prasanna pointed out, Ribbon Analytics is a generic analytics platform that allows us to look at any number of input devices, whether it's C15, C20, our core SBCs, our SWEs, etc. We can actually generate a large number of reports fresh out of the box that allow you to hit the ground running day one while using this solution to manage your network. So we'll go through a number of these dashboards in our demo here next. So if we could go ahead and switch over to the demo. And then I'll just do a quick check, make sure you can see my screen there, Lance or Prasanna.
Hey, Todd. Yeah, looks good. I can see everything.
It's good. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Ribbon Analytics, this would be what we would consider our home screen. So here we have the UI for Ribbon Analytics, and you can see here I'm looking at one particular dashboard that we'll call the data ingestion metrics. The dashboard is made up of a number of visuals that are available on the UI here. I'll start off on the left-hand side, however, and just kind of walk you through a little bit about how this is set up. So currently I'm looking at some of my dashboards. But you'll notice down here in the devices drop-down, we do actually have a number of things that we can take a look at. In this particular case, I'll just pull up my device list, and you can see that we're actually pulling in C15 data on this particular set of dashboards. But you'll also notice some of the more advanced stuff that you may have heard about within Ribbon Analytics previously, things like data enrichment. Quite powerful when you have things like IP addresses or very network-specific information that you want to translate into normal English so that just about anybody can understand what they're looking at. So you can insert things like site names, users, and or even things like GPS locations for the purpose of maps. On top of that, you'll see the applications, and you may notice some of the applications that we were just kind of running through when I talked about that series, the portfolio of applications that we offer within Ribbon Analytics. And within the different accordion, you can now click on and drop down some of the individual items that you may be interested in. You'll notice, report manager. In this particular case, I can show you quickly. We talked about having things that can actually, or tools I should say, to keep you up to date as far as what's happening on the network. I just this morning created a new report on this particular system to help me understand what's happening now with my C15 call quality. If we take a real quick look at this particular report, what you'll notice is I've set up a particular action. In this case, it appears to be an email to myself. Take a look at what it is we're having happen here. Just setting up an email out to myself. You can see an attachment here. On this particular attachment, what I've decided to do is send out an actual PNG of one of the dashboards. You could actually send out a link for that dashboard or even some of the raw data if you chose to do that. And you'll notice that you have access to pretty much any of the dashboards that come along with the system. And you'll also see within here, there's a number of dashboards that are pre-seeded within Ribbon Analytics when you get the C15 software installed. So an awful lot of data that could potentially be included here as far as what's sent out in this particular report. And you'll notice what I've done is I've had it send out a time range for the report for a particular week, and it sends out every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern to my email address. So it's a nice, easy way to make certain on Monday morning when I walk in the door, I know exactly what happened on my network in the previous week. You notice that I actually, drop down through this accordion pretty quickly. If you're not as familiar, it does have a very nice search function that allows you to quickly find something, whether it's reports or should you want to pull up something like detailed information on your CDRs, you could, quickly jump into CDR Viewer, etc. But right now, let's go ahead and jump back into our dashboards so that we can start to take a look at the tool itself and some of the data that's visible. I'll start off with my data ingestion metrics for the C15. And what you'll see here is a nice summary dashboard about what's coming into Ribbon Analytics from our C15 system that we have set up. So in this particular case, you can see the way the dashboard is set up. We have, a nice count or the volume of records actually coming in. We can see which device is actually feeding this. On this particular demo system, we only have a single one. We can see the different types of information or records that are being sent into Ribbon Analytics from this particular box. And then as you go through these charts, you'll notice they are, highly modifiable. If I want, I can change things around. It's a very flexible solution. I can expand them so that I can a little bit more easily see what's happening. For any particular data point, you have the ability to grab additional information for that particular data point. And you'll also notice that you can, quickly and easily change whatever it is that's being used to generate this particular report. For this one, I'll just change it to a minute granularity. You can see how quickly the system is able to go through and recreate the data on a minute-by-minute basis. Again, a demo system with not necessarily real live traffic, so we don't have complete straight lines or connected lines here, but this gives you an idea of the type of functionality we're dealing with. So this gives us an overview as to what's happening as far as Ribbon Analytics is concerned. As the device is feeding the system. Let's take a look at how the system starts to analyze the data for, in this particular case, the calls themselves. So now we're going into the call stats dashboard. And again, you can see a number of different dashboards that we've set up in here for things like understanding the SIP method, or things like the trunk grip minutes of use. So you can see in this particular case, we've grouped everything by trunk group. We have the minutes of use is what we're using for our axis here, but we're also color coding for volume. So it gives us a nice visual way of understanding this guy is pretty high volume, even though he's got less minutes of use than the previous or the other trunk group that's shown here. And what I can do from here, as I was showing on the previous screen, is I could do things like filter. And when I do a filter, I'm saying filter the rest of my charts based on that one trunk group 1947. So you should see the volume of 22,364 pop up over here. The minutes of use, 44,278, seems to match up pretty well. But now you notice my trend lines are now totally different for this particular visual. So now that I'm only looking at the 1947 trunk group, all of my other charts or visuals here have updated, and I can continue to drill down if I wanted. So in the SIP methods, for example, I can see that I have a lot of forbidden here. So if I wanted, I could continue to drill down, do something like details, allows me to actually now dig into the details or the SIP packets, if you will, for this particular trunk group and the ones that ended up in a forbidden. Now, very detailed information, essentially the source info for this particular set of calls. I can now take any of this information and run back into that CDR viewer that I was quickly showing you on this screen, and actually pull up the CDRs and the ladder diagrams that we talked about earlier within the applications. Moving on into the actual call quality dashboard here. Here we have, again, a number of dashboards that show us what's happening from a call quality point of view. Starting here up top, I have a heat map, which is, again, an excellent way to visually understand what's happening from a SIP method point of view versus, in this case, IP source. Again, I'm showing 5 IP sources here. You have the ability to completely modify these items. You could show your top 10, your top 20, however you want to actually take a look at it. Again, we've got this 4 to 3 forbidden here. You can do a lot of the same style of drill downs I've been showing. I could do something like a zoom. Now the zoom allows me to start to say, okay, for the 4 or 3 forbiddens from this one particular IP address, in this particular case, what's the destination IP address? Help me understand, are these, spread out across every destination that we have, or is it, isolated to a particular set of players? How does that exactly pan out? So I could actually zoom in and pull up the IP destination for that particular one. And you'll notice as I do this, the additional charts in here, the MOS, RTT, loss packets, average jitter, these items aren't being changed at all because these are completely different type of data. So I'm able to zoom in on one particular piece of data and then continue to monitor things like loss packets and jitter over time. One other item I haven't touched on just yet, but you'll notice there's a nice little slider time bar down here. So we're showing up one day in particular for this data set. But you'll also notice we have the ability to go in and manually set it, whether it's a static time or we could do dynamic times. And this allows us to do really however we want to do it. We could do it at the end of a particular week or a month or a quarter. And that allows us to, change these timelines rather rapidly so we can change the visualizations moving forward. And finally, if you really want to, you can go through and take a look at the actual raw data. So in this case, we're looking at the CDR tables. We have start and stop CDRs on this particular visual. And this is the raw data as we go through for the time period that is shown on the slider bar down here. Again, if we wanted to, we could actually modify what's being shown in here. In this particular case, here are our columns. If this is something we wanted to, completely move around, we could, so that the columns could modify. We can even modify what data is showing up within this particular table. In this case, we're only missing partition key. So pretty much everything is already shown here. Partition key is an analytics key item there. So at this point, we have all the data shown. So we've gone from some pretty nice visuals that allow us to understand, what's happening on the network from any number of directions, whether it's an overall network point of view or the actual service of the calls themselves and how they're performing, all the way down into the actual source data of the solution as well. So again, obviously I was focusing on C15 data throughout here, but as Prasanna mentioned at the very beginning, there are any number of devices that we could actually ingest into Ribbon Analytics. If we actually go back into our main screen and we look at the device types, you'll notice that there are items like SPC Core or even EMS, Q20s, C3, G9, all the way down through things like EdgeView, and even the C15 as we're looking at now. Across these many different types of input systems, input devices as we call them, we have a number of applications that are available. So at this point, I think we'll hand it off to Rich. Rich, would you like to start discussing some of the more advanced applications that we have within Ribbon Analytics?
Sure. I think we're going to go back to the PowerPoint slide. There we go. So thank you, Todd. I am, as introduced before, I'm the product manager with analytics, and I probably have talked to many of you or done the demos with you. So one thing I do want to carry over, Todd went through the C15 and the Discover application. So keep in mind that the analytics is a platform for data analysis, and then the applications on top of that, again, Todd focused on the Discover application. So adding to that, we have many advanced applications such as a planner tool, which does historical analysis and forecasting on data information within it. We have media voice quality, which is a specific application within the core SBC where it can analyze and send RTCP plus data on a very granular level, looking at individual calls, giving you a very crisp information about call quality issues during the call itself. Also, we also have most probable cause, which is a ML-based algorithm that does root cause analysis looking at cause code symptoms, helping drive to close how long it takes to solve a problem or pinpointing a problem that you may be seeing in the system. Okay. Next slide, please. Another whole section of the capabilities within the analytics system is around the security. So obviously the security problems you see out there is the evolving network attacks, everything keeps adjusting, the nuisance robocalls, high level of the networks and the size of the networks and all the new endpoints that are there from an IP perspective that are now available to attacks. And then obviously this affects your bottom line because you're dealing with your customers that are looking for carriers and enterprises to actually be on the first line of defense for help securing their network and their services. So with the ability to look at the information as it's coming into there, the analytics system has multiple device applications that can look for the threats, identify the threats, and help provide that feedback, along with some of the mitigation capabilities that Todd kind of was referring to earlier that allow the system to react and actually make changes back into your network, either through the alerts or actual adjustments to the devices themselves. Okay? Next slide. So some of the use cases with the security items are we focus on RoboProtect, which looks at nuisance calls and robocalling based upon a block and allow list sign of an analysis that then analyzes your calls in your network. We can pull third-party lists into the system, and we can also feed into the larger Ribbon Call Trust network and feed information up to that for real-time analysis. We have a telephony denial of service application which analyzes call patterns and rates, looking for attacks coming into the network that are looking to try to basically fill up your traffic and stop your calls coming into your network. You can help identify those patterns and obviously then push mitigations in to stop those rogue calls coming into the network. And then from a fraud protect, it's a broad capability on fraud management, anything from tracking behavioral analytics from individual callers, from countries of destination, and from trunk group analysis on how the calls are coming into the trunk group, the amount of calls going in the trunk group, being able to build an actual profile and then mapping that trained profile to what the traffic's coming in to identify normal and abnormal behaviors to flag those as suspect issues in the network. This covers anything from voicemail takeover, from call takeover, or even misuse of any of the corporate phone policies, looking for people making calls, anything from IRSF or toll fraud types of scenarios. The other part of fraud then is around custom identification. So beyond the behavior analytics side, you can build all kinds of customized rules that can then identify based upon any of the parameters coming into the system looking for fraudulent behavior. Anything from the count of rings, how is the jitter bad, how much data may be passing through there, or how many times has a caller maybe called into the system. So you can track all that type of information and actually build specific rules to meet your specific needs in the system there for identifying fraud behaviors. Okay, next slide, please. So kind of in summary then, analytics is a large-scale system that can scale up and scale down depending upon the needs and the size of your network. It provides you an overall single pane of glass for all your analytics needs within multiple various elements in your network and operations, security, capabilities within it. The use cases, we say 100 plus, but they really are endless. With the information coming in, the ability to build different dashboards, set up alerts, build and define different rules, bring your problem to us and we can help you solve it. One of the things that analytics actually tries to help you with is all this data is available to you, right? Your devices already produce this information. The hard part is wrangling the information together and making sense out of it. The analytics platform and the Discover application, along with Fraud Protect, help you compartmentalize the information and get to a resolution faster and help makes the information make sense and helps you disseminate it across multiple people and the right people so you can actually make decisions and adjustments to your network in a timely manner to help build your revenue and help your quality of service or even manage SLAs. Okay? Thank you. To you, Prasan.
All right. So thank you, Rich and Todd. Lance, do you want to bring in the questions? I think it's probably the right time to.
Yeah, sure, definitely. And while I do that, you know, as Prasanna has on the screen now, you have a few links to some of those same documents that are in the tool. Again, you can access those here by clicking those links or by hitting the little document icon and seeing those in the GoToWebinar tool. So thanks for you know, typing in your questions. There's still time to add more, so if you have a question, feel free to add it. We had a couple come in already, and we'll address those now. So the first one was, where is my data kept in Ribbon Analytics, and who will have access to it?
All right, I'll take this one. So Ribbon Analytics is a product that's sold by Ribbon for you to deploy within your network. It is not a hosted solution. This is something that can be deployed on a single VM or on a cluster of VMs for a high availability solutions that is deployed within your network. So all the data, all the information about calls, privacy, security is contained within your network under your control and management.
Okay, and kind of a similar question, I guess, is how much can the system store? How much data and information can the system store?
Okay, so since this is in your network, we sell it as an application and you provide the amount of storage space. So if you use this as a cloud deployment, obviously you can use an AWS system that has unlimited space from that, or you can provide whatever you want from a NAS or a SAN perspective and store as much data for as long as you want. We've deployed systems anywhere from 1 to 2 terabytes of data storage because people are looking for a couple months of storage, or people have looked for 18 months of storage, and we've worked with systems that went up to 32 terabytes of storage space, and then it just depends on how much call capacity is running through your network. So the storage space is really up to you and how long your retention policies within your company are.
Okay. Very good. Can I add other devices to the system?
So analytics allows you, so Todd showed you the C15. He also showed you some of the device cards for adding other devices such as information from C20s or SBCs. Also, we do incorporate some third-party devices on an as-needed basis from customers, and the system can be built to allow us to provide a schema policy to add additional third-party devices as we go down the road. The system is an open system. It is not targeted just at Ribbon devices. It is about pulling data and information in. Obviously, we do focus on Ribbon systems because we know and have tons of information in there, but we've already added stuff such as CUCMs, Oracle SBCs, other types of systems, and we're even adding the API interface to pull Microsoft Teams data in from Teams to Teams calls into the system also for processing.
Okay, thanks, Rich. I think there's one more here that I saw come in. Can I create my own dashboards, or do I need to service hours from Ribbon to create those dashboards?
Oh, good one. So I think Todd was showing you some of the manipulations of the dashboards. You have complete control within the Discover app to build and create and customize and manipulate any additional dashboards or builds that you want for your needs. If you're building it for a particular department, analyzing something to a particular customer group, that is all within your control within the system. But obviously, Ribbon Professional Services is on hand too, that we can help you build and create additional dashboards if you need assistance there. We've done that quite a bit, building more elaborate data analysis, dashboards and information, or even specific KPI set creations that can be done looking at all the details in the data command.
Okay. Very good. There's been several others. I know, Todd, you've answered some in the chat, and Prasanna, I think you answered one or two in the chat. Do we want to address any of those verbally so that everybody else on the call can see those? I'll hand it to y'all if you'd like to address a couple of those that you've answered.
Sure. So I think some of the ones have been chatted to. The other one, kindly share all kinds of threats that you've catered in analytics examples specific. So some of the big ones that have popped up with some of our enterprise customers, again, we sell this to service providers and we sell this to enterprises, has been international toll fraud, and finding those calls that have occurred at off times, whether it's weekend hours or off hours, that are going out to high international call rates. We can build and do the analysis in the 5-minute bend intervals, and we've saved a few carriers, actually as enterprises, over $200,000 just because they didn't even realize that they had some international calls going on, bleeding revenue along the way that was happening over a long period of time. But since we have that historical view, we can actually analyze and see that that was occurring over weekend over weekend over weekend. And that aggregation ability that analytics brought can help them to see that, and it actually was adding up to quite a bit. They were able to identify it and then shut down the hole and the security that enabled that phone system to get out. Other ones that have been found on that kind of our operational sense is looped trunk groups, looped call patterns have also been discovered really off the bat, almost as we've done and set up the initial systems as they went in for just the first few hours. Because what the system does do is build aggregations of information quickly and allow you to see that. We can go in and talk about more of the threats, just trying to be a little bit time sensitive. We can and do see all the SIP information coming through from the SBC's perspective. So we have and identified, obviously, rogue user agent ability or user agent types. Looking at the next question, how the license management works. So the system is licensed in a matrix way that it is by application. So we talked about the fraud protect by discover, and then it's about the amount of events per day max that the system is processing by application. So that is how the license is done. Beyond that aspect, it's the number of devices that we're pulling information in. So it really is a charging license mechanism based upon the amount of traffic we're processing by the dimension of number of devices that we're pulling information from. Next question here that I see on this list, Lance, is can we see what customers are integrated for which destinations and what are the suppliers against those destinations? Okay. So make it searchable in the GUI. Generically, I'll say yes to this question. Obviously, we can sit down and do more details. We have built customized, I'll call them applications or dashboards and data analysis. So the system actually has another ability we didn't talk much about here is data enrichment. So we can pull data off of flat files or other data sources into the system and then enrich either calls, CDRs. And we have been working with other customers that build like rate analysis capabilities, looking at the calls, least cost routing analysis, information for around PSXs. We do get the route information in the CDRs from the SBCs that the PSX chose. And we worked with customers that can pull a rate table in and then add those costs based upon an area code destination or country code and do the calculations to show you in a dashboard or table those costing. And then you can add alerts to that for those type of scenarios too. Okay, Lance, I think I hit most of the questions that came up in the question area and the other private questions.
Yeah, I think you did for sure. Well, look, I think we're kind of at the end of our time, so we'll go ahead and wrap up here. If you do think of another question later, you're going to get an email from us later today with a link to the replay of everything, as well as a copy of the slides. You can always reply to that email with your question. In addition, you can go to ribboncommunications.com. Plenty of more collateral like you see on your screen and other ways to get a hold of us there if you do have another question. But we certainly thank you all for your time. Again, be on the lookout for the emails today with the link to the replay. We also have another webinar tomorrow, sort of the future of rural broadband in America. So if you haven't had a chance to register for that one, you can find that at ribboncommunications.com as well under our webinars. So again, thanks so much for your time, and we look forward to having you on our next webinar shortly down the road. Thanks and have a great day.